Hello, everybody, and welcome back. This is Suspects and Spirits, and I'm your host, Taylor Seraphin. I hope you're all having a great day, making good choices, and just being awesome people. Um, I gotta tell you guys something really quick. Has anyone else just, been really annoyed? I guess I'm asking you, I'm not telling you. Has anyone else been really annoyed trying to get tickets for things these days? I've been very lucky. I've been able to get tickets for, My Chemical Romance, Haley Williams, but even like the kid shows, if you got kids, you probably know what I'm talking about. When you're trying to get tickets, it's going to limit you on Ticketmaster to 4 tickets, right? What do the families do who have more than, 3 kids that want to go to an event? What do you guys do? Genuinely curious. Like, what do you do? Because I was trying to get tickets for my children, which I was able to do, but I also wanted to get tickets for their cousins because they all like the same artist and she's going on tour. So I was like, you know what? It's fine. I'll just log in on David's account the next day for the general sale and I'll get them through his. No, it wouldn't let me do that either. It said I had already bought tickets to this event, even though it was a totally different account, totally different credit card. I guess it was per household, not per account, which I haven't had issues with before. So, what do you guys do? I texted my sister-in-law and I was like, "Hey, you're just going to have to hop on and try to get them, whenever you can." The prices unfortunately went up literally overnight, but I'm hoping we can also go together, like stay at a hotel, even if we don't sit in the same sections. That's fine. It would have been more fun to all sit together. But why are we having to strategize to buy tickets for a kid's concert? Scalpers they ruin everything. I really don't believe in buying from third party. The only time I ever will use a third party site is the app Game Time. Game Time is great. This isn't an ad, but I love Game Time. I've used it for hockey tickets, comedy tickets, all kinds of things. I've used it for concerts too, but I trust Game Time because they partner with Ticketmaster and usually the prices aren't like insane. They're pretty good prices. But like SeatGeek, StubHub, all of those, I don't trust them. I don't trust them at all. Those prices are wild. Like it's robbery. It should be illegal to resell tickets like that. And thankfully, this concert, they did have a no resale above face value, which is great, but the tickets aren't transferable. So even if you are to buy tickets for somebody as, a gift or something, you can't transfer them the tickets. They would have to log in under your account when they get to the event. So it definitely it creates barriers and it's hard for people to get tickets and go and enjoy the concert. So I guess I'm just saying that I miss, I don't know, the 2010s when you could get a Warped Tour ticket for $50. Things they do be changing, don't they? I don't like it. Change is hard for me. I'm a Taurus. I'm an earth sign. We like consistency. Anyways, if you have advice for, future ticket buying for large numbers of people, that'd be great. I know that they limit the amount because they don't want scalpers buying like entire rows and then reselling them. I get that. I really hope that their cousins can also snag some tickets and we can make a girls' trip out of it because I think that'd be fun. But yeah, that's what's been going on in my life lately. And then just things are so crazy. Things are so busy all the time. I had zero motivation today. You ever have one of those days where you're just like, I'm not doing shit. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to eat a snack and I'm going to take a nap. And guess what? I did that. I took a nap. I did have to take my little to the doctor this morning, though. She got the flu. We all got sick recently, and her cough has just been so persistent. She's so phlegmy. But we finally got into the doctor, got some medicine, and hopefully that cough will just be gone very soon. I hope. Everyone in my classroom is coughing. Literally every kid. So fun times, Fun times. So anyways, I have an episode for you guys today, and this guy sucks. Today's story is about a guy named Chandler. Great name, horrible person. Not Bing, okay? Not Chandler Bing. This guy's the worst. Are you ready? Well, it's too late now, so here we go. Chandler Halderson is who we are talking about today, and he was born on March 15th, 1998. So that makes him an Aries? No, He's a Pisces. Oh, that explains a lot. Nothing against Pisces. I love you guys. Don't come for me. Okay. I love a Pisces. But there's like a lot of serial killers that are Pisces. John Wayne Gacy, Charles Cullen, Richard Ramirez, Dennis Rader. Weird. Like really prolific ones. Really terrible, terrible people. Obviously, a lot of Pisces. Not all Pisces. Like I said, love you. But just a weird coinky dink, right? Anyways, sorry, getting off topic. Okay. So Chandler Halderson, he was born March 15th, 1998 to Bart and Krista Halderson, and he was born in Windsor, Wisconsin. This is a quiet town about 30 minutes outside of Madison. He was the younger of two sons, and his older brother's name was Mitchell. He was just a year older than him. From the outside, looking in, the Haldersons looked like the quintessential American family, right? They were picture perfect. Krista worked in customer service. Bart worked for an intern. Whoop, can't talk. Bart, wow, I'm really struggling today, you guys. Bart worked for an international accounting firm. And by all accounts, they were very close. They were deeply involved in one another's lives, and as parents, they were really proud of their sons, which makes this 10,000 times more sad. They were very committed to family time. They really enjoyed spending time together. They owned a cabin originally built by Krista's grandparents in the 1940s. It's a lakeside retreat that had been passed down through generations. It was like their getaway place, their tradition, their version of normal. That's where they would go for, 4th of July holidays, um, other holidays where people go to cabins, Christmas, I'm sure. But that's where I don't have a cabin. I don't know. But that's where they would go and they liked to spend time there. And this is a kind of an important part of the story. So if you're like, why the fuck are you talking about cabins? I promise it will come up again. Okay. So that's the Haldersons, all American family, whatever that means. By 2021, Chandler was 23 years old and he was still living at home. Nothing wrong with that, right? Many people do it, saves money, all of that. But he told his parents and his girlfriend, Catherine, whom he had been dating for about 2 years, that he was attending Madison College online due to COVID. He also claimed, though, to be working a part time job at an insurance company. Everything appeared pretty stable with Chandler and with his family. His girlfriend, Catherine, would later describe the family as warm, welcoming, and very fun. They played games together, they talked, they seemed like super tight knit. But unfortunately, that foundation was just a work of fiction, at least for Chandler. You see, Chandler, he had not been attending Madison College at all. In fact, he had flunked out years earlier. And when his parents asked to see his transcripts, which is a very reasonable request, he assured them that there was no problem. He was like, yeah, I'll get those. And he provided contact information for school administrators. But the problem was that those administrators did not exist. So I would say that he's like lying out of his ass, but this is much, it's many, many more steps that he took because he is now creating fake accounts, fake email accounts. And he began corresponding with his own parents, posing as college officials. I know. Just say you dropped out. Now, these emails, they supplied false updates about enrollment, and they provided very carefully crafted excuses for delays in releasing his transcripts. When his father, Bart, began pressing for those official records, Chandler escalated the situation. He didn't stop at the fake emails. He invented a counselor. He invented a whole other person. And his name was Daniel Spieth or Spleth, depending on the spelling he chose that day. And this fictional advisor exchanged multiple emails with Bart and even scheduled a Zoom meeting to resolve the issue. Like when I tell you guys, he's going above and beyond with these lies. If he put this much effort just into going to school, imagine he would do great things. Unfortunately, he chose to be a piece of shit. And that meeting, of course, never happened. On this day that it was supposed to occur, Spieth, the counselor, emailed Bart to say that a family member had contracted COVID and the meeting needed to be rescheduled, which, okay, that things got rescheduled like crazy during COVID. I had to reschedule my wedding twice. So I wouldn't even bat an eye at that. I'd be like, okay. But eventually, all of the Zoom meetings were being canceled. And the administrators that Bart had been corresponding with, every single one of them were fabricated. Later, investigators would determine that the IP addresses for these emails traced back to the Halderson home. Chandler, being the genius he is, he even used his own birthday when creating some of these fake accounts. Yes, so not a lot of forethought. And this college deception, you guys, I wish I could say that that's where it stopped, but this is just the tip of the iceberg. This is just one layer. So as I said, at the top, Chandler also claimed to be working part-time at an insurance company. Yet he consistently had no money. He told his family he was broke because payroll had mistakenly sent his checks to the wrong address. He insisted he was working to fix the issue. They're like, "Oh, okay, that's a little weird. You'd think that payroll would fix that quickly, but um, there was no payroll problem. I know, shocking. There was no job either. It was frankly an unusually boring lie for someone who would later spin much bigger ones. Why lie about working at an insurance company? I mean, I guess you're trying to go with believable, right? Like believable at best. But soon, his lies stopped being believable. Eventually, Chandler upgraded his story. So he's getting cocky now. And he told his family and Catherine, his girlfriend, that he had completed his degree. And wouldn't you know it, he received a job from SpaceX. Yes, Elon Musk's aerospace company. And he said his starting salary with them was going to be 80 grand a year, which I don't know. What do SpaceX employees even earn? Let's see. Oh, wow, that's a lot of money. He really lowballed himself in this fake career. Okay. So, Chandler, he also said that because of this job, he would have to relocate to Florida. And his girlfriend, Catherine, was thrilled. She was so excited because he was like, yeah, let's go together. Let's move together. Let's start this new life in Florida. It all sounded great. They began browsing for homes online. They planned a future around a position that did not exist. And when the reality of that lie was starting to catch up with Chandler, because like you can't just move to Florida if you don't have a job there, right? And if you also don't have an actual job already and you have no money. So because of this, Chandler claimed he had fallen down some stairs at his parents' home. He had an accident before they were supposed to move. I know, what a bummer. He went to the hospital and he later told his family that he suffered catastrophic injuries. Sorry, catastrophic injuries. I don't know why that made me laugh. I think it unlocked a memory. Did you guys have to watch Al Gore, his videos in high school and stuff, or middle school, depending on your age? They made us watch those, and that dude used the word catastrophic so much. So every time I hear that word, that's who I think of. Catastrophic climate change. Anyways, Chandler claims that these injuries were absolutely terrible, and he did get injured, but the way he spun these injuries, oh my goodness. He said that he had a severe head injury that could cause paralysis. He said he had a brain bleed. He also said he had a brain aneurysm, nerve damage, and a spinal injury, which, like, that must have been quite the tumble down those stairs. But, it's Chandler. So none of that is true. Because according to medical testimony, he had actually just sustained a mild concussion. That's it. They said, hey, your brain shook a little bit in your head. You got a mild concussion. We're going to keep an eye on it. He was given a neck brace at his request. The doctor didn't give him one. He asked for one due to reported pain. And he was instructed to follow up with his primary care doctor within, 4 to 6 weeks, which that's standard protocol for a concussion. If you've ever had one or know anyone who has, that's pretty common. Nevertheless, Chandler is nothing if not consistently an asshole. So he told his family that he could not drive, could not fly, and that meant that SpaceX job he got would need to be postponed, unfortunately. Conveniently, though, he assured them that the company had agreed to hold the position until he fully recovered. So nice of them. Now, his father, Bart, who bless him, he was still believing his son because why would you not? If your child has never given you a reason to think that they're a liar, why would you not believe them? So he was like, all right, cool. Sorry about the injuries. What about those transcripts from college though? Like you're probably going to need those, right, for your job, and they'd be good to have on hand. So he continued pressing Madison College for transcripts. Like he was really just trying to be a good dad. He was like, I think that my son should have access to his transcripts. They're important. He worked for them. So he was really just being a good guy. But on June 29th, 2021, Bart decided he was done. He was like, this is ridiculous. Why are none of these people competent enough to just get me my son's transcripts? This is infuriating. So he did what most of us would do as parents, and he decided to call the school directly. And he reached a real person this time named Omar Job. And this man, Mr. Job, he unfortunately had the displeasure of informing Bart that his son was a pathological liar. He told him that, yeah, Chandler did attend here. However, not recently. His last attendance was in spring of 2019. And he had actually failed multiple classes, withdrawn from others, and had never been a full time student. He also owed $2,000, which prevented transcripts from being released. So, technically, he didn't lie about that, but everything else was a fucking lie. There's a reason he couldn't get his transcripts. It's because he was in debt. So Bart, who's sitting there like, what do you mean? What's going on? He then provided the names of the administrators that he had been emailing, the fake ones. And to his surprise, none of them worked at the college. After that call, Bart texted Chandler. He said, quote, I spoke to Omar Job. I'm ready when you are. End quote. Which, he could have been like, hey, you lied to me. We need to have a talk right now. He could have been a lot meaner about it. And he wasn't. He was just like, I'm ready to talk when you are, like when you're ready to come clean. But he seemed to be taking the high road, very emotionally intelligent as a parent. And I mean, he's a grown man. He's 23. So what can you do, really? You can't ground him. Now, Chandler does live in their home. So even as a 23-year-old, they could be like, yeah, you're cut off. Get out of here. The thing is, though, we don't know what happened. We don't know what transpired after that text because 3 days later, Bart and Krista were reported missing. If you've listened to this podcast for more than 5 minutes, you already know my nervous system lives on the edge. That's why I love RYZE. Between being a mom, a teacher, and a full-time researcher of all things sinister and spooky, I need energy that doesn't come with anxiety. My therapist says I have plenty of that already, which is why I love to start my day with RYZE. RYZE is a mushroom coffee blend that gives me focus without the jitters, and it actually helps me quiet my ADHD brain. It lifts my brain fog and somehow even made my gut health way better. We love a multitasking beverage. I usually drink it in the morning before I sit down to research or record, and it helps me stay clear-headed instead of wired. I like to add a little cacao powder, a sprinkle of cinnamon, and of course, my favorite creamer. Then suddenly, it's a delightful little cup of emotional stability. RYZE isn't just coffee. It's gut health and nutrition that your body actually craves. With lion's mane, cordyceps, reishi, shiitake, and turkey tail, you'll be saying, holy shiitake, I can actually focus because these mushrooms help maintain focus throughout the day. They help maintain your stress levels, and they even boost immunity while clearing up that pesky brain fog. So if you're trying to kick your caffeine habit or you just want something that's genuinely better for your nervous system, head to the link in the show notes and use my code suspectsandspiritspodcast15 to get 15% off your first purchase. What have you got to lose? Again, that's Suspects and Spirits Podcast 15 to get 15% off your first purchase. Your lizard brain will thank you. If you're anything like me, your schedule is packed. You're driving, you're cleaning, you're meal prepping, you're walking the dog, you're doom scrolling, and somehow still trying to consume books. Audible makes that easy. You can listen to true crime, thrillers, memoirs, paranormal deep dives, basically all the spooky little treats that your brain craves, while doing literally anything else. I love throwing on an audiobook while I'm cooking, grading papers, driving, or pretending that I'm going to organize my house. And right now, you can start a free trial and get 2 audiobooks on us. Yes, 2. So whether you're into murder mysteries, creepy history, or a comfort listen to calm your nervous system after this episode, Audible's got you covered. Check the link in the show notes to get your free trial and grab your 2 audiobooks today. Your ears will thank you. Now, the first person who became very alarmed by this was Krista's coworker and friend, Daniel Kroninger. I'm going to say it right now. Everyone get you a Daniel. This man, he's a real one. I would hope that any of my coworkers, my friends, would do the same because this guy was like, something's weird, something's fishy, what's going on? And clearly, he had great instincts. He listened to his lizard brain. So Daniel, he became really concerned because when Krista failed to show up for work and wasn't responding to any calls or text, he was like, that's really weird. This behavior was entirely out of character for her. She would never no call, no show to work. She would never just ignore my texts, my emails, my calls. Like, where is Krista? So he decided he was going to go to the Halderson home and figure out, what was going on, check it out, make sure everything was okay. A little welfare check. When he got there, he saw that both Bart and Krista's vehicles were in the garage. But when he knocked on the door, no one answered. And so he's looking around, the exterior of the house, and suddenly Chandler appears. He's like, oh, hey. And he explained that there was no need to worry because his parents had just spontaneously gone to the family cabin for the 4th of July weekend, which that's believable. It's July 2nd. 4th of July is that weekend. They do have a cabin that they're known to spend holidays at. So no one would really question that, right? However, it was very odd that Krista had not informed her workplace that she would be gone. And she had not talked about, going to the cabin for the weekend, anything like that. Daniel had no idea. He was like, oh, that's weird. Like, we talk at work all the time. She never brought that up. But this is coming from their son. So he's like, okay, I'll believe it. They went to the cabin. Now, Daniel did mention to Chandler that, he'd tried to contact Krista, but she wasn't responding. And he was just a little bit worried that maybe there was an accident of some kind or she may be in trouble. And Chandler was like, no, the cell service out there just sucks. So she's probably just not getting your texts or your calls. And Daniel said, okay, that makes sense. And he went on his way. He figured he would see Krista on Monday. Everything was fine. But what Daniel was not expecting was on July 4th, Chandler ended up contacting Daniel asking to spend the holiday with him. And Daniel was like, that's a little weird, but okay. You can come over for 4th of July. Your parents aren't here. You're by yourself. Sure. Come on over. It's fine. And while spending time together, Chandler kept reassuring him that his parents would return the following day. However, they did not return the following day or the day after or the day after. And by July 7th, Daniel was urging Chandler to file a missing persons report. So Chandler agreed. He was like, oh, yeah, I should probably do that. Now, when you file a missing persons report, usually the police are going to interview you about the people who are missing, right? So detectives interviewed Chandler, and Chandler offered yet another version of events, because remember, that's his specialty. He loves to lie. And he said that his parents had actually been picked up by an unknown couple, and that's why their cars were in the garage, because this couple picked them up and then they all drove to the cabin together, which was something he never told Daniel. Later on, he changed his story again. He claimed that they had actually rushed there to the cabin to handle a plumbing emergency. So they weren't just going for the 4th of July. Something happened with the plumbing. They had to go take care of it. So the police were like, all right, seems valid. Let's go search the cabin. And there was absolutely no sign of any recent activity there. There was no plumbing emergency. There was no Bart, and there was no Krista. Meanwhile, Mr. Chandler was seen on neighbors' Ring cameras knocking door to door, asking if anyone had seen his parents. And in hindsight, this footage reads less like concern and a lot more like staging. On July 8th, during police questioning, Detectives told Chandler that they knew he was not being truthful. They were like, "You're lying to us. Why are you lying? Where are your parents?" And when being pressed by them, he asked for a lawyer, which does not make you guilty. You should always ask for a lawyer if you are in a predicament, right? But this is Chandler, and he doesn't have the greatest track record, and he was also the last one to see his parents alive. So he was arrested, not for murder, but for providing false information in a missing persons case, because that's illegal. He changed his story multiple times. Your story doesn't change multiple times if you're telling the truth. So clearly he loves to lie, but he's not good at it. Now the police, they did end up finding Krista and Bart. A break in the case came from a farm owner who reported seeing Chandler on her rural property days earlier. And she said that he was behaving very suspiciously near a wooded area. So police searched the location and they discovered a male torso. Yeah. It was identified as Bart Halderson. Yeah, I told you he's the worst. He's the fucking worst. He dismembered his own father because he got caught in a lie. Just one of the worst kinds of humans on the planet. Just so horrific. So when they found Bart, Chandler was charged with Bart's murder and dismemberment. But Krista was still missing until Catherine, the girlfriend, provided a very, very critical clue. You see, she and Chandler shared Snapchat locations. Apparently, Chandler had been honest for once in his life with Catherine about how he had cheated on previous girlfriends. So, to put her mind at ease, they shared locations with each other. And if he was out and about, she could check where he was. That way, he couldn't lie about where he had been, which I'm just going to say right now, if you need to do that, you shouldn't be together. That's not the kind of relationship you want. But it did prove to be very helpful in this situation because on July 3rd, Catherine noticed that his location was near the Wisconsin River. And this was a place that he had not mentioned visiting. She was like, "Why'd you go to the river? Like, where the fuck were you? What's her name?" Right? So she took a screenshot. Now, that screenshot, she later turned in to the police. She was like, "Here you go," which good on her. That's exactly what you should do. Sometimes you hear in these stories where the boyfriend or the girlfriend's like protecting the partner and it's just a whole mess. But she did the right thing, which I'm sure was not easy. Like, this is somebody she loved for years and thought she was going to start a new life in Florida with. That's just very sad. So when investigators got this screenshot, they searched that area and they located Krista's remains. Chandler was then charged with her murder as well. As you can imagine, the evidence mounted very, very quickly against him. Daniel had even mentioned that earlier he noticed a flipped coffee table in the living room when he went to, check on the house and make sure Krista was okay. Another weird thing was that Chandler had also asked Catherine to bring ice, hydrogen peroxide, and a Swiffer to the house, claiming he had injured himself on a broken glass fireplace partition. And so she did. She brought it over and she even spent the night there that night. Authorities do believe that both parents had already been killed before Catherine spent the night in the home. In the evidence, there was also security footage from a neighbor who showed flickering light from the Halderson home fireplace during the 4th of July weekend, which was very unusual considering it was midsummer. So investigators said, "Well, I think we should check out that fireplace." And they recovered over 200 bone fragments from the fireplace. Chandler was also found to have purchased 20 pounds of ice and a tarp, and an oil drum near Bart's remains contained tools with both parents' blood on it. And Chandler, he tried real hard to cover his tracks. He cleaned up the house. He tried to make it seem spotless, but he was forgetting about that little thing called luminol, which revealed cleaned blood traces inside the home. There was just blood everywhere. Now, of course, authorities had to conduct a full investigation into how the parents were subdued, how the dismemberment occurred, all of that. So, according to authorities, they believe that Bart had been shot with a firearm that was found near his remains. However, due to the condition of Krista's body, the exact cause of death could not be determined, which says a lot about what he did. If a medical examiner, coroner can't figure out a cause of death due to the body's condition, that tells you just how terrible the things he did were. So clearly, Chandler was guilty and he was put on trial for the murder and dismemberment of his parents. During this time, prosecutors presented Chandler's Google searches from July 8th, which was the day that police were actively searching for his parents. I'm now going to read you what his Google searches were. They consisted of 1. Body found in Wisconsin. 2. Woman's body found in Wisconsin. 3. Wisconsin dismembered body found. 4. Dead body found in Wisconsin. 5. Body found in Milwaukee River 2021. 6. Bart and Krista. So there's that. He was Googling about it to see if anyone had discovered what he had done, which is really stupid. And I'm so thankful he's dumb. He would have been caught regardless, but wow. The prosecution's theory was pretty direct. They said that Chandler killed his parents after they confronted him about his lies regarding college, which, yeah, I mean, that seems pretty straightforward. He pleaded not guilty and he did not testify, which I found to be really weird for a guy who loves to lie. Like, clearly he loves attention. So I found that odd. Maybe his lawyer was like, don't fucking speak. Do not get up there. You're already guilty. You're going to make this worse. So after all was said and done in court, the jury deliberated for only 2 hours before finding him guilty on all charges. And Chandler was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Love to see it. Great work. Now, when he was given the opportunity to speak, Chandler asked if any lawyers were listening and requested for help with an appeal, because of course he did. Now, unfortunately, in April of 2023, 2 of the convictions related to hiding the bodies were vacated on procedural grounds. And that just is technical legal jargon for being canceled or set aside by a higher court or through his appeal, which he got. Yes, he did get that appeal and he got those 2 convictions vacated. However, his life sentence remained intact. Thank goodness that judge had a brain because, as we know, sometimes in these stories, wild things happen during cases, but not this time. In the end, though, his motive appeared to be just heartbreakingly simple. His parents discovered his lies, and even though they didn't seem like they were furious, they seemed like they were, more concerned about why their son was lying, which we could see from his father's final text that suggested, readiness for a conversation, not condemning his son. He just wanted to understand why he was doing this. It is so incredibly sad that Chandler chose murder over conversation. And not just murder, you guys. He dismembered them. That's not a normal thing. There's clearly something wrong in his brain chemistry. And through all of this, his brother, remember, he had an older brother named Mitchell. He lost both of his parents and also his brother in one very, very senseless, violent unraveling, which, like, poor Mitchell, like, who could have ever fucking imagined that his brother would snap like that? It's so sad. But Chandler, thankfully, will spend the rest of his life in prison, having to answer for what he did. All because the truth was going to come out, and he decided that was unacceptable. What an absolute asshole. It's senseless, it's stupid, and it's infuriating. His parents were just trying to be good parents. I mean, his dad was trying to get those transcripts because he thought it would be useful to have, which it is. And if Chandler had just been like, you know what, mom and dad, I'm really, really sorry. I dropped out of college. I've been lying to you. I also don't have a job and I'm stuck. Like, I don't know what to do. Can you help me? because nothing that I researched seemed like they were terrible people. Like nothing. There was absolutely no records of him or Mitchell talking about how their parents were abusive. Not that that would excuse this behavior, it wouldn't, but nothing about how they were like explosive, authoritarian style parents. So he just did this because his ego was more important than his parents' lives. Like, piece of shit, you know? Maybe study his brain, figure out what's going on up there so that we can catch it in other people and prevent it before it happens again. He absolutely deserves to rot in prison for what he did. His poor brother, his family, like, he just ruined everyone's lives because he's selfish and a liar. Ugh, this is a rough one. I'm so thankful that his girlfriend had his location, because had she not, would they have ever figured out where his mom was? That's so sad to think about. Ugh. Well, rot in hell, Chandler. Not Chandler Bing, but this guy. He sucks. And now that you have to sit with this information the rest of the day, would you like to know a weird history fact? A little fun fact to cleanse your brain? Because I have one. Are you ready? I know that was a weird segue. I really have no way to segue into this. So the historical fun fact for today is that in the late 1300s, Charles VI of France developed a very specific belief, or I guess phobia, you might say, that he was made of glass. Yes, not like metaphorically and not poetically, not that he was like sensitive. He literally believed that if anyone touched him, he would shatter into pieces. I know. Isn't that weird? He refused to be touched. He wore reinforced clothing. He had iron rods sewn into his garments to protect himself from breaking. And he also panicked if someone came too close, which, like, I totally understand that part. I'm not made of glass, but I get it. That's valid. But you guys, this was actually a known medieval psychological phenomenon, and they called it, quote, the glass delusion. Right? So weird. I'd never heard of this. And there were other cases, obviously, because I had a name for it. But Charles VI is the most famous case. And that is how fragile masculinity started. So sorry. Oh, I was right there. But really, quite literally, the most fragile masculinity in recorded history. So have fun with that information. If you're ever on a game show and there's a question about Charles VI's phobias or, what is the glass delusion, then you're welcome. You'll be all set. Let them know where you learned it. A true crime podcast where we get all of our information, aside from TikTok. But hopefully not really. I hope you read books and do research. So you can use my link. Maybe you can go to Audible and find a book about glass delusion. Actually, that sounds really interesting. I might go do that. Anywho, all right. That is all I have for you today. Be good humans. And as always, remember to trust your lizard brain. Oh, and leave an Apple review or a Spotify comment because it really does help, or YouTube, wherever you want, okay? All right, until next time, goodbye. Love you.